Welcome to Trifecta Collective, Finding the Root, where we dive deep into understanding and addressing root causes of chronic health issues so you can help and find healing inside and out, now and forever. Hello, and welcome to Trifecta Collective, Finding the Root. I'm Megan Abbott, owner and founder of the holistic health practice, Trifecta Collective. Welcome to the podcast. So today, we've got a very special guest, also from the practice. Again, here we've got Caitlin Kerfman, who is another one of our practitioners, our newest practitioner to the practice, not a new practitioner, but just new to our practice. So super excited to have Caitlin on today. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, of course. So Caitlin recently is like wrapping up a certification that I'll have her probably just talk about a little bit. And we thought it would be really cool to talk more about just things that contribute to mental and emotional health struggles. Things that really impact this. And it's not, when we think about anxiety and depression, especially from a Western medicine standpoint, it's, oh, here's a medication, here's an SSRI, like here's a thing to like fix your brain chemicals. And we know on the other side of things that, yeah, brain chemicals absolutely play a role in this, but also what's going on with the brain chemicals? Why are the brain chemicals the way they are? Like, what are the other things that can also impact mood and, once again, these mental and emotional health struggles? And where are some places to we're going to kind of break this out into bigger sections. We're not going to do super deep dives into each one. If there's a lot of interest, we can always do that. And for today, we're just going to kind of bigger picture drop through some of the bigger pieces that contribute to this and things to think about when you're thinking about, like, should I go on medication? Should I try something else? Should I change my diet? Where should you start? We're going to help you kind of break down where are some places to start and where to think about when it comes to supporting your mental and emotional health. So we're going to dive in. Caitlin, before we super dive in, do you want to talk about the program that you're wrapping up here?
Yeah, for sure. So I am wrapping up the functional mental health practitioner certification, Brendan Vermeyer's course. And it's been super interesting. So I think when I say that to people, especially who are new to the functional space, they think talk therapy or like mental therapy. And really what this course is diving into are, again, the root causes of mental health, but really looking into how is the brain being affected? Neuroinflammation is a big one, looking at the microglial activation, which is kind of getting scientific, but what's going on in the brain that is causing these neurotransmitters to be imbalanced and for the mental health issues that we're seeing, because for a long time they went and still do go off the monoamine theory, which is neurotransmitters, the imbalance of neurotransmitters. But as we're learning, a bigger part of that is further upstream, and that's neuroinflammation. And at the same time, when we don't have those even like raw materials for those monoamines, that's when SSRIs and stuff, that's why they don't work so well, is because when you don't have, like, if you're making a cake and you don't have the ingredients to make a cake, it doesn't matter, how much you put a pan in the oven. So like with the brain, you're squeezing those synaptic connect. It doesn't matter how much. That's what the SSRI does. If you don't have those neurotransmitters there, it's not going to help. So, and that's a lot of what foundationally we're diving into. And a lot of those foundation things that we'll talk about are things that are going to help lower neuroinflammation. And in the course, we're looking at deeper blood lab markers. There's some really interesting markers that look at inflammation in different areas of the body that have been proven in studies to show as indirect markers to brain inflammation. So it's hard to test the brain. You'd have to do a spinal tap, and we can't do that. But looking at the inflammation markers, we can infer based on these studies how they are affecting the brain. And then, of course, like you do a lot in practice, OAT testing, that is a huge one. We do talk through stool testing because, as we'll touch on today, like gut health is a huge piece of that gut brain connection, so the brain and neuroinflammation, but the biggest piece is really blood labs.
Yeah, and that's great. And I share this information a lot. I was on just about every medication that is out there for about a decade. I mean, I really try to play around with it. I started to struggle really, really early on in my life. I mean, I was a teenager, like a pretty young teenager, when I went on birth control and all of these different types of medications and talk therapy. And I thought it was one genetic. I thought that was playing a huge, huge, huge role because my mom was an alcoholic and she was on every psych med under the sun as well.
Yeah.
And, arguably that didn't work because she was still an alcoholic and, which didn't help anything either.
Yeah.
And I never felt good. The best way I found to describe it is on any combination of meds. And by the way, it got real scary sometimes. Some of the side effects and reactions that I had made things worse. And at best, I felt like a zombie. I had
Mhm.
no highs or lows. I felt super numb, super out of my body. I wasn't actively trying to kill myself, but I didn't feel good. There was no happiness. There was no joy. There was nothing. And so I think that's important for people to understand too. Like after I started to learn about the OAT test a long time ago, I was like, man, before anyone goes on any of these meds, we should absolutely be running one blood work and be able to read blood work. But like this organic acids test is such good information when it comes to mental and emotional health and all of the things. So yeah, I love this course. I have not taken it, and I love that you are going through this and can bring all of this amazing information into the practice and supplement some of the work that we already do with clients. Because this is, especially for women, like, let's be real here. How many of us suffer from anxiety, depression, low mood at some point in our lives? I mean,
Yeah.
still, yeah, as I'm looking on my desk, I've got like a mental and emotional detox kit sitting in front of me that I'm gonna be trying out that may be supportive for our clients. Brendan has already tried it and has had amazing things to say about it. I want to try it personally before we start potentially recommending it to clients because Brendan and I have already done all of the things and yeah, and there's so much foundational support that people can add in that can make them feel better. Have women be able to show up for themselves, to feel better themselves, to show up for their families, to show up for their kids. I don't think I've talked to any mother ever who's like, yeah, I want to be low mood. I want to have depression. I want to have anxiety and be around my kids, and I want them to see that. Of course we do. Of course we want to be the best version of ourselves that we can be, especially for our families. But even in workplace and just day to day life, it's so important.
And I
So
think it's way more in our control than we're led on to believe. And I've been one of those people that has struggled too, and I still do, but I think that there is a whole lot more within our control that most people aren't even skimming the surface on yet. And it's like, man, if we could even get, like we're talking about today, these foundational pieces, like it's going to relieve a lot of that pressure.
yes, exactly. Okay, so excited. Let's just dive in here. So let's start with some real basic, like really, really basic foundational things that can impact our mental and emotional health. I'll start and then we can kind of bounce back and forth here. Hydration. Man, your body needs water, guys. And I will tell you, the number of people we see that come in and they're drinking anywhere between 8 to 30 ounces of water a day. It's really high. It's really astounding. And our brain needs water, our gut, our digestive tract needs water, our blood needs water. Everything, so much of our body is made up of water, and we need water. And if you're dehydrated, absolutely that could contribute to low mood.
100%. And I think that's another thing is we're getting minerals with water most of the time, adding minerals to water is like the best thing because water doesn't exist solely as water in the body. It's and that's the what's spark plugs.
Mhm.
Like we need those minerals plus the hydration for things to be flowing, and that alone, I think it was like I remember in the NTA it was like 1% dehydration.
Oh,
It was
it was astounding how just I remember the chart, and we recorded a podcast on hydration and minerals, and we we used a lot of the information that we had from the NTA. And for reference, that is the Nutritional Therapy Association. That is one of our all three of us have as a core certification that we use. But even mild dehydration, headaches, back pain, that blew my mind. The number of people who struggle with back pain, and I always question how much of that is just from dehydration, mood, I just joint pain, joint stiffness. I mean, really, I mean, basic dehydration, minimal dehydration can have a massive role systemically on our body and with our mental and emotional health.
yeah, huge.
Yeah. Nutritional support. So let's wait to dive super deep into nutrient deficiencies until we get to the gut health section of this, but just
Hmm.
basic nutrition. What do we need? What are some big important things that our body uses to make some of these neurotransmitters?
Good question. I mean, the biggest thing that most people are low on is protein. Like the monoamines, these neurotransmitters are made from amino acids. That's proteins, and that's complete protein. So animal protein primarily is the best way to get those amino acids to build the neurotransmitters. So yeah, first and foremost is going to be getting adequate protein.
Almost all women that come to us, protein intake's too low. Just, I mean, anywhere from just a little low to you're not getting any or almost no protein. And protein is one of two essential nutrients. We need proteins and we need fats. Technically speaking, we don't need carbohydrates. That is not a proponent. We are not proponents of going low carb, no carb, and technically speaking, to survive at a most basic level, we don't need them and they have value. But protein is so important, and protein is so important for so many things, including our mental and emotional health. And also, we are not the biggest fans of vegan vegetarianism, and that doesn't mean we don't work with those clients either. And it's you have to be very, very intentional with your nutrients, with your protein intake if you are going to go that route to make sure that you're getting the nutritional support, basic nutritional support that your body needs. And animal protein is very complete base protein. If you're also another person that gets most of their protein from protein bars, protein shakes, protein powders, it's not the same. Not saying it's bad, and it is not the same as eating something animal based that is going to have protein, very bioavailable, meaning your body can actually use it very easily. And it's going to come with complementary nutrients in the ratios that our body needs. We're not going to get all of the B12 without the other B6, B9, like all the other B vitamins. Like we're not just high dosing B12 out of ground beef, which can also throw things off, which we'll also talk about a little bit later. So protein usually are that's one of the first things that we work on with clients from a nutritional perspective. And within 2 weeks, I'll tell you most consistently, better energy, better mood, better cognitive function are three of the big things that we hear most commonly without changing anything else, just the protein aspect.
Yeah, it's a huge, easy, low-hanging first step.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, next one here, sleep. Once again, guys, like super basic, we need sleep. And women, the studies are so clear on this. We need more sleep than men. We cannot operate on 6 hours of sleep, 6.5 hours of sleep. It is not going to cut it.
Well, and at the same time, that's when your brain detoxes. Like it's pushing all of these fluids out and it's literally your body's time to regenerate. And when you cut that short, you're cutting that detox process short. You're also cutting your sleep cycles short too. So it's like it's twofold. I'm sure it's more than twofold, but like you've got the sleep recalibration, you've got these phases that you're going through, but then you also have this whole detox component. I mean, more than your brain's detoxing at night, but with mental health, I mean, that is a huge aspect of helping your brain perform better.
Yeah, exactly. And so one of the things that let's just talk about it now. So during our sleep, one of the our brain is, we can say, regenerating, healing itself, processing different things in different organs. And if we look at, more Eastern medicine based, Ayurvedic based calendars or time clocks is what we can call it. There are specific times where different organs are doing different things, and we can kind of correlate that to, if you typically wake up around this time, let's say 1 to 2:30, typically your body needs liver support. Before that, your brain is basically draining things that should not be in there and healing itself, just to put it real basic. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. But most basically, that is what our brain is doing overnight.
Yeah.
And so, if we're not sleeping enough, if we're not sleeping super well, if our sleep schedule is really messed up, if, you know, night shift kind of stuff, this is where it can be really challenging, and we may need to bring in some additional tools if someone work with a lot of nurses in particular, and some of those nurses do work night shifts, and we have some special considerations. I'll also say one of the things that I run into, especially with a lot of my clients who have a lot of chronic issues, is their brain's not draining for a variety of reasons, and we've got a bunch of stuff going on in their brains, but also their whole body is so tight. I have found that people who have really tight, if the base of your skull is really tight, if your neck is really tight, if your upper traps, so it's the top of like your shoulders are really tight, which, by the way, is a lot of people, especially if you hold on to a lot of stress. Yeah, if you hold on to a lot of stress, if you don't work out and your shoulders are up by your ears all the time and you can't drop them back and down, this alone can also inhibit brain drainage because it needs some place to drain. And if everything's so tight, where is it going to drain? It doesn't have that capacity. So it's both like a sleep thing and also your body needs some space to be able to drain itself to begin with. And this is where sometimes where like doing some really basic exercises to help start to relax your shoulders back and down, to get the neck and just your posture overall to be in a better position, can also be very, very, very supportive.
Yeah, I've actually had that problem. I mean, just from stress and life in general, but from lifting, and then you're not doing the mobility with the lifting. So like for the lifting fanatics out there, I mean, yes, I've been there. Yeah, you're probably way too tight.
Mhm. Yeah, especially if you do a lot of upper trap work without proper balancing between the upper trap, lower trap, rhomboid, and kind of the scapula specifically, that can cause a whole lot of issues. And even if you do lift a lot and your neck is in a good position, if you are on your phone or computer a lot and you're jutting your head forward a whole bunch, that can cause so much pressure at the base of your skull, and that can cause some of those issues to be there as well. Yeah. And let's just continue on the movement little train here. Movement is super good for your body, for your mental and emotional health. There's some really good studies that have come out in the last, say, like 6 to 8 years, I want to say, showing that strength training, specifically strength training, can be just as, if not more effective for mild to moderate depression as medication.
Yes.
And there are very few negative side effects from strength training, especially if done properly. There are so many benefits outside of just mental and emotional health. And if you are familiar with my story, you know that that's how I got off all my meds, was getting into strength training and lifting and really focusing on doing that very consistently. And that's how I got off and could stay off all my meds after a decade on all of
That's
them.
interesting because when I was younger, I struggled. I think I talked about this, struggled really bad with some very interesting mental health issues. I don't know, if interesting, but it was definitely terrifying as somebody who's so young. But when I got into track and around the same time, it was like I really struggled. And then I think it was the first year I went into track and I started feeling better. And then in high school, I did lifting and it changed. Just those two things alone changed so much for me. I didn't have like the severe panic attacks anymore. I didn't have like the thoughts. Like you said, I wasn't actively suicidal, but it was like that no long, like just wishing you weren't around anymore, which is terrifying when you're young. Yeah, and it went away. It went away. Yeah,
It's
huge.
so important. And here's the thing, if you're not in a place for a variety of reasons where you can start a strength training program, which absolutely can be the case, even just walking. Walking has been shown to be very helpful for your mental and emotional health, especially if you can walk outside. The natural light plays a really big role in our brain health and our mental and emotional health and our circadian rhythm. You are meant to have natural light in our eyes and not just be inundated constantly with the screens and all of the things. So also just get outside and take a 5 or 10 minute walk. And that can go a long way. I'll tell you, anytime I get really frustrated now or just yeah, overwhelm, I go take a walk and just even 5 or 10 minutes, it changes everything. It shifts everything. It helps my body release everything I'm holding on to, helps my brain process a little bit better. I'll also say I learn better during movement. So if I'm watching a training or going through that and it's not super detailed where I need to be in front of the computer taking notes, I'm going to be out walking because I know I'm going to retain the information better.
I'm the same way with that
Yeah.
too.
Mhm.
Uh, both of these things, the strength training and the walking, especially being in nature, are two things that we talk about in FMHP a lot. So like, yeah, it has a lot to do with the nerdy, like diving into the physiology and the biochemistry and the blood labs and stuff. But a lot of it, we talk about the foundational things. And those are two really big ones that we talk about: the getting outside, getting in sunlight, getting in nature does amazing things for the body, and we discount them, especially walking and being in nature, because it's free. And like, we're always looking for something like the next biohack, or like we need something special. It has to be complex. There's no way getting outside could possibly make me feel better. And it's like, it really will. Like, I think part of it is, the fresh air, especially if you are in nature. There are chemicals in like pine trees and stuff like that. Wh- And I'm sure other trees, all the trees, but I know pine in particular. Don't ask me why. I probably just watched some herbal, like I was, that wouldn't like, I know I would just watch something about it that's like, oh, pine trees. Anyways, when you're out and you're breathing that in, like there are natural chemicals in the air that have impact on our bodies. I'm sure, like, scientifically, we don't even fully understand.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll tell you, we're Jonathan and I are getting ready to do some real travel again this year, as he is better, and we definitely don't want to be in Arizona again for the summer this year because we don't have to be. And one of the things that was really helpful for me when we first started traveling was anytime we'd go somewhere new, and we all know travel can be stressful, especially in a 41-foot RV traveling, we're traveling 2,000 miles in our first trip. It's a lot. It's very stressful. And so one of the things that I got really used to doing, and that was really helpful for me just especially from a stress standpoint, was to go sit outside. I mean, like physically, like my butt on the ground for 10 or 15 minutes whenever we got to a place. And man, it was so relaxing and just helped with the overwhelm and the stress and just, and I'm not doing anything. I'm literally just, my butt is on the ground and I am just sitting. And it
Yeah.
makes such a world of difference.
That's what I've done when I've been in really tough spots because I have dealt with mental health issues on and off, and especially like in the last years with mold and like leaving corporate and diving into this world, doing a complete, like change of life and going through health issues because bodybuilding isn't very helpful when you have stress. So I did that.
It
I
is
did
not.
the wrong things. But when I was in this place where I like even doing the dishes was difficult. It was really interesting because I would have to like sit down and take a break doing, and I was not even 30 at this point. And life was just, it was so like the easiest things were so hard and I wasn't even working full time anymore. But I would go outside and I would just sit on the step with my feet on the ground, and it really helped ground me. It didn't make everything go away in the moment, but it definitely made a big difference in how I was feeling. And we know from studies that grounding, there's the ion change, and it does do in ground balance out your body.
Exactly. Yeah. Pseudoscience aside, all of that, all the woo-woo stuff aside,
Mhm.
there is very clear, if we look at quantum physics, and no, I do not understand all of quantum physics, but I do understand enough to have it translate into a lot of the woo-woo stuff. But the Earth, the physical Earth that we are on, has a frequency. All of our cells within our body create a frequency because they're always moving at a certain frequency. And shifting into the Earth's frequency and having the frequency of the Earth come into us and shift our frequency, very supportive. Very, very, very supportive for so many people. I'll also say I knew back when I was doing a lot of networking when I was running another fitness company. I met a man who literally healed. His legs were numb. He had no circulation. They were talking about amputation, and all he did for about 2 hours a day was go outside, ground, and imagine the earth healing his body. Real life story. He did not need surgery. He healed.
That's
There are
awesome.
other things. Yeah, it's like, were there other things? Sure, of course there could. Did that grounding piece do something for him? I think you can't argue with it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a real story. It's a real person. So that is a real thing. Not saying it's going to heal you. Not saying it's going to fix you completely. Yeah, it can be very supportive of a lot of things, including your mental and emotional health.
absolutely.
Yeah, super big. And then kind of our last like big basic that we'll touch on here is the mindfulness practice. And there's a lot of things that can go into this, and we're going to talk about the nervous system at the end as well and do a little bit deeper into this. But basically, a mindfulness practice is designed to help you manage stress. And when we're under a lot of stress, it can really get to us mentally and emotionally, physically. And having some sort of daily practice, and it doesn't have to be huge, doesn't have to be big, like 1 to 5 minutes is fine as a starting point. For some people, as an end point too. But some sort of way to manage this stress, to decompress, to be present in your current circumstance, which is what a mindfulness practice bring you back to the present, not the past, not the future, but in the moment now, can be very, very supportive.
Yeah. That's been one of the things that I've worked on over the last handful of years, and it's been in so many different ways. And I think and I also think that as you go through things, like you're gonna mesh with different things at different times. So your practice probably isn't always going to be just breath work or always going to be just a certain type of meditation. You're probably going to go through different things, and by all means, try them. Gravitate towards whatever sounds good in the moment and whatever you're going through, and branch out and try different things, because it's, even if it sounds weird, because I think a lot of people are like mindfulness practice, and they look at like breath work and they look at meditation and they look at the things and like, I don't know. It's like, just try one and then try another, and you'll eventually find something that's clicking for you in the moment. And likely at some point in the path, you're probably going to feel good with some of the others too.
The way I always like to kind of an analogy I like to do is basically you have this empty toolbox with your mindfulness practice. And the more things you can try, the more tools you're putting in your toolbox. So when life things happen, when stressful situations happen, and you need to fix something, you just open your toolbox and pick out the thing that feels most supportive for you. But if you only have a hammer in your toolbox, there's only so many things that you can do. And by the way, I'm not like a super fix it kind of person. That's a real basic analogy. A hammer, a wrench, some nails, screwdrivers, you just and that you can do different things with that. And so same thing within our mindfulness practices. Having those tools in our toolbox, we can pick and choose from those what feels most supportive. And yeah, I think that's an amazing recommendation. Just the more tools you can experience and practice. And by the way, there's tons of free stuff. There's tons of free stuff on YouTube. I bet if you search your local area, you can find tons of free or very low cost. I know back in Richmond, there was a lot of donation-based things, whether that was yoga or guided breathwork sessions or like guided meditation practices, sound baths, all kinds of different things. I mean, I could spend $5 for a 90-minute sound bath.
Nice.
And that was amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Because it was donation based. And so, if I only had $5 to spare, then I could just give $5. If I had 25, then yeah, I'd give 25. So, being able to have those and just it takes a little bit of work just to do a little bit of research to find these things. And we do have a lot of tools in our toolbox that we give to clients of things that we've looked at. We have somatic practices and breath work and meditations and energy healing and brain retraining exercises and all kinds of different things. And between the three of us, you, me, and Brendan, man, we have a lot of tools that we could talk about and suggest. And it's just, once again, it's just a matter of what feels best for you right
Hmm.
now. Yeah. Okay. Let's move into one of our bigger, broader topics, gut health. So let's dive in. I'll have you start. Start wherever you like with gut health and how it impacts our brains.
Gosh. Well, if we start at the top, I feel like that's the best way to start, is at the top with digestion. If, like we talked about earlier, protein, amino acids are really important for neurotransmitters. If we don't have enough stomach acid, then we're not able to break down our food and we're not able to get those amino acids. We're also not able to get the nutrients. So, like I had said earlier with the cake analogy, when our body isn't built from like fairy dust. It's built from the foods that we're taking in. Like, those are the nutrients, and those nutrients are needed for certain pathways in the body. And that's going down a rabbit hole. But just understand that digestion starts with that. I would say the next thing after that is like, that's what keeps that bacteria, fungus, parasites, like the whole microbiome in balance. And then if we don't have that balance and those things become overgrown, is when we start to get the leaky gut. And leaky gut leads to leaky brain. So they used to think that the blood-brain barrier couldn't be crossed, like it was impenetrable. I just said that wrong. Impenetrable.
There you go.
Yeah. But they now know that it can be crossed. So your blood-brain barrier is made of the same epithelial tissues that the gut lining is made out of. So if your gut lining gets leaky and those naughty microbes are getting through, they are also getting to the blood-brain barrier. And the blood-brain barrier can actually be disintegrated. Maybe that's not the word I want, but it can be attacked from both sides. So if we start having neuroinflammation and issues in the brain, because there's a couple different ways. We have the blood pathway, but we also have like the vagus nerve. So there's different ways that the brain and the body, the rest of the body communicate, but it can be attacked from both sides. So when you kind of start getting that chronic neuroinflammation, not all inflammation is bad. Brendan always uses this phrase throughout the course that inflammation is the cleansing fire. It is what's there to keep things in check, to go after the bad guys. But when it becomes chronic because of things like leaky gut, that's when we start to have the issues, and we see those chronic conditions come in, like the mental health issues when we're, having the chronic anxiety, when we're having the ongoing depression and things like that. It's like, okay, we need to look upstream and see what's leading to this. Yeah, what else would you add to that?
Yeah, just a couple of things I want to kind of like little asterisks or little add to just what you said. The role of PPIs.
Mhm.
PPIs are so commonly used, and they are lowering stomach acid. And over 90% of people who have heartburn, acid reflux, you don't have too much stomach acid, you have too little. And then you take the PPIs chronically, typically, and that further lowers it, which then we know and we have seen, gosh, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of time in practice now, how that impacts the rest of your gut and how that really feeds and fuels into the gut overgrowth issues, which also have a huge impact, like you just said, on mental and emotional health. I also think leaky gut, a lot of people come to us initially and I saw a naturopath or I saw something online and I have leaky gut and how do I fix my leaky gut? And it's like, yes, and
Yeah,
leaky gut,
oversimplified.
aka yeah, aka intestinal permeability. And this means there's a lot of things getting out into your bloodstream that should not be. And if we only look at the small intestine, which is what leaky gut is talking about, and the wall of the small intestine and how it's supposed to have very, very, very close junctions. So only the proper nutrients are supposed to be able to escape. And when we start to have those gates be open and larger particles of food, pathogens, whatever else may come out of there, the body's then going to attack those things because they should not be there, which is an immune response, which then can lead to food sensitivities and all kinds of other immune system related issues and gut issues. And one of the big mistakes I see, and I'm also going to rope in now inflammation. Once again, we get a lot of people come, I just need to address my inflammation. I'm taking berberine, I'm taking turmeric, I'm taking curcuma, all of these things. And that's not the issue. The inflammation itself is not the issue because it is a natural response within the body. If it is chronic, the question is why and how is it chronic in the first place? Same thing with the leaky gut. Why and how did it get there in the first place? Not saying we don't address it ever, but also if we don't address the bigger reasons why, we're symptom managing and we're throwing supplements at you that you're going to have to be on forever. And that is not the goal, or not supposed to be the goal of functional or holistic health. And if you are working with a practitioner, as we've talked about on so many episodes, that is just prescribing you or recommending dozens of supplements and they're all these individual nutrients and something for inflammation, something for leaky gut, and something for this, something for that, you're being symptom managed just like Western medicine does, just for supplements instead
Yeah.
of actual root cause healing and looking at the body inside and out as a whole, which is what holistic health is supposed to be, and looking at the whole body altogether.
On the inflammation piece. So Big Pharma is catching on to the fact that mental health issues are not primarily monoamine issues, that the big driver is neuroinflammation. So it might not be well talked about yet, but they know. And a lot of the new drugs that are coming on the scene are drugs that lower inflammation, neuroinflammation. And so they're just blocking certain pathways. But when you lower inflammation, you you are also lowering the immune response. So you're putting yourself in this immunosuppressive state, which is not something you want. So yeah, sure, we may be lowering neuroinflammation in the brain with these drugs, and perhaps it's needed temporarily. I'm not against that, but like maybe it's needed temporarily while we implement some of these foundational pieces if we're not functioning. Yeah, I get that. Uh, but if we're putting the body in a immunosuppressive state, we're opening ourselves up into even worse conditions. We just don't realize it because we're suppressing symptoms.
Exactly. And just since you brought it up, I do want to mention this because I've had a few cases of this come up recently. And I don't know if doctors are just not talking about this. Which I mean, I think is incredibly irresponsible and extremely dangerous. But the big peptide on the market at the moment, which can be used for some, is being prescribed for some for inflammation type issues, can, as a common, not an uncommon, a common side effect, cause increased mental and emotional health struggles to the point where one of my friends, who is a licensed practitioner, I talk about her all the time. I never say her name, but I just talk about my friend. Several of her patients she's gotten emergency phone calls of, I cannot get off the floor. I am having crazy suicidal thoughts. I had several clients recently. I am so depressed. I can't do anything. I'm so frozen. I am so stuck. I don't know what is going on with me. This is not my norm. And it's because it's a common side effect of this major peptide that is being used. And once again, I'm not anti this peptide, and you should be aware that this can be a side effect. So if you start to feel that way, you can talk to your doctor, talk to your prescribing physician, and be like, hey, I'm having this. This is probably a side effect because I've heard this. One, why didn't you tell me about this? Two, we need to start lowering your dosage because your body is not responding the way it's supposed to be. And you should not have these depressive episodes, these suicidal episodes. That is not how these things are supposed to respond in your body. And it is a very, very common side effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's good on just like big picture gut health. We're going to talk about more of neural inflammation and toxin load here. I also just wanted to mention that if you get a concussion, if you have get a TBI, traumatic brain injury, we don't specialize in this necessarily, and I've done concussion protocols for a variety of people. My significant other has had two traumatic brain injuries, and no one ever talked to him about this. And he went down some deep rabbit holes and did all kinds of stuff to help his body heal from these TBIs. He still has side effects. They're nowhere near where they were originally, and he still deals with some stuff. But concussion, traumatic brain injury, leaky gut is one of the biggest things that we need to look at right away, because a brain injury, your brain gets hurt, it's going to translate immediately into your gut. Immediately. So that's one of the big things. It's not the only thing we focus on in post-concussion protocols, and it is a very important piece because it can have a really big impact on your gut health, on your mental and emotional health, and long-term health, because leaky gut just doesn't fix itself either. You need to add in some support, and that doesn't have to look like supplements. There are other ways to do this, and some support should likely be used to help your body, all of it, heal from this
Yeah.
traumatic event.
Yeah. I wouldn't if I had a concussion, I wouldn't say don't do anything.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
should be doing something immediately. The sooner you can
Yes.
get on some things, the better off you're going to be in healing from that. if you've ever had, I've never had a concussion, I've never had a traumatic brain injury. And once again, I live with someone who has had multiple, and he had multiple concussions. He was very active growing up, but a lot of sports. It's a little bit of a, was a little bit of a wild dude just in general, and, a little carefree and motorcycles and all the things. So, yeah, typical guy stuff. So, working on gut health has been a big focus for us before cancer, after cancer, during cancer. We did some, he had a lot of like candida type issues come up that we worked through. So, super, super important. Okay, let's talk about toxins here, big picture. How can toxins impact the brain?
Yes, I feel like this is one of those big ones when we were talking about inflammation and we're digging into like, why is the inflammation chronic? That most of the time and again, like people say, you were talking about the leaky gut. I have leaky gut. Well, why? More times than not, I want to say it's toxin load, especially in today's world. If you are dealing with pretty significant symptoms, and I would say in mental health that tends to be the case, a lot of times it's toxin load. And that can look like heavy metals. Big one is mold. Even beyond that, like chemicals. I mean, there's so many things that we're coming into contact with, and if we don't have good body drainage, that is certainly impacting the brain and mental health. And we just start to accumulate these things because most of us are not, well, I mean, most of the world, I mean, just look, like we know, like, um, just so overburdened. And absolutely, that is the brain on fire. We're getting those chronic signals. We're getting these inflammatory things sent to the brain to keep it simple. Like that is what's lighting the brain on fire, whether or not you feel like you have gut symptoms. I think that's another thing is people kind of like, well, I don't have any gut problems. Um, and it's the gut is involved. It may not be just a gut problem, but in order to address the brain, you are certainly going to address the gut. The gut isn't necessarily the root.
Right.
Um, but the toxin load is a big one. And I feel like there was something else that stuck out to me there with the toxins too, but I think I lost it.
If you
I'll think
find it,
about it.
yeah, just bring it back up.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important. Yeah, our environment now, even if you live a super clean lifestyle, you can't get around some of the chemicals unless you are growing all of your own food. I mean, distilling your water. I mean, it's so, so, so hard. And heavy metals and mold specifically can cross the blood-brain barrier.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons why we like the organic acids test so much is we get insight into that. There is a marker called quinolinic acid that anytime I do an organic acids test review, I always put special emphasis on this one marker because it's so important and it looks at neuroinflammation. And if
Yes.
there is mold involved, if there are heavy metals involved, we know that number is going to be elevated and that someone is going to be struggling mentally, emotionally, and probably also cognitively because mold and or heavy metals have crossed into the brain and caused a lot of issues. Mold is, we could argue, the most dangerous toxin from prolonged exposure and colonization within the body, and systemic, and some are worse than others. And I mean, I had heavy metal issues. I never had mold issues, and I still had a lot of mental and emotional health struggles. Once again, a lot of factors going into that. And mold, man, it's so hard to share the significance. We've seen cases from very mild mold exposure and toxicity within the body, and those people are still having anxiety, especially anxiety. Yes, depression can absolutely be there as well. But I'll tell you, we work with some people with extreme mold illness, mold toxicity. Their mental and emotional health is in the tank. I mean, absolutely panic attacks, crazy bouts of anxiety, crazy bouts of depression, flip-flopping. I've had people diagnosed with certain disorders when after we do the mold work, I won't say they're not there, and, you know, they're not really there. So, this toxin piece is so big. And if you undergo any bouts of stress, if you have any sort of hormonal imbalances as a female, if you have any gut issues, if you have inflammatory issues, if you drink, if you don't drink, by the way, if you have nutrient deficiencies, drainage pathways are something you should absolutely be looking at. If you're not pooping at least one really good, fully emptying feeling bowel movement every single day, not every 3 days, every single day, your body is reabsorbing those toxins. I guarantee they're going to impact your brain at some point.
Yes. I remembered what it was.
Okay, great.
Um, so the big thing with toxins that I've been seeing more and more as I've worked with people with more toxins and seen them, is that you can then do the mold work, you can do the heavy metal work, you can do the work and primarily eliminate that threat, so to speak, but the nervous system hasn't forgotten yet. So this is the big thing that I think is being missed that you do very well. Um, and it's like, I mean, these people are sometimes so stuck. And some of this is a belief piece too. So like mindset comes into place, and then we have the nervous system that hasn't yet learned how to calm back down. Um, and now the threat's gone, and we have these different pieces. Because like I said, there are some people who now believe like, okay, like the labs have showed me that it's gone. I'm still feeling like I'm still having the triggers. I still have the symptoms. So some of the symptoms may still be there, and a lot of that can be coming from the nervous system still being on high, which is something that I've struggled with myself. Is like, okay, like now I'm doing pretty good, but the nervous system is just still stuck in that fight or flight or freeze, wherever you're at in that spectrum. And now we have to address that. Not that I necessarily wanted to move away from the toxin piece, but how interconnected that is, and I think missed.
Yeah. I'll say the handful of people that we are not able to fully help heal are typically the people who will not go there with the nervous system. And do not believe us when we say your brain is still living in this pattern of I'm sick, I have an autoimmune disease, I have IBS, I have mold in my brain, I have depression, I have anxiety, I am living in a fill in the blank pattern, trauma, situation, whatever it might be. Your brain doesn't automatically get rid of that. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to, which is one of the big reasons we talk about, body work, like somatic type work, but we also talk about brain work, brain retraining work. You've got to retrain your brain to be like, hey, I am not still living in this trauma. I am not still living in this chronic state of stress. I am safe. But you have to tell your brain and your body that because it doesn't always know. It doesn't automatically always know. And if you have a longer trauma history, which is a lot of you, this is even more important where we have to communicate to our brain and our body, hey, we're not here anymore. It's okay. We are safe. We are safe to heal. We are healed. We are always healing. Your body is not working against you. Your brain is not working against you. And you can be safe. And once again, just throwing that out there, regulating the nervous system is not feeling calm and peaceful and happy and rainbows and sunshine all the time. It's just about not being stuck. You're not stuck in fight, flight, fawn, freeze. You're not stuck. We're supposed to go in and out of these, by the way. They are natural responses to our environment. The issue comes into play is when we get stuck. I'll also tell you, one of the first practitioners I ever worked with was a neurological chiropractor, I think was his title. Super smart guy. I mean, like probably still to this day, probably one of the smartest people I've ever talked to in my entire life. And, one of the things he talked about was the role of trauma, especially early childhood trauma on the brain. And I'll never forget it. I understand now where he was coming from, and words do matter sometimes. But he told me my brain was broken because of trauma and that I had brain injuries that I was never going to fix. And that was very hard to take, especially I was very chronically ill at the time. And then being told on top of that my brain was broken because of trauma that I couldn't do anything about. And, what do I do with that? So
Yeah.
no, your brain's not broken. Your brain's never broken. We can heal it. Your body can always heal from these things given the right conditions. And the nervous system plays such a big role in that. And we have to, that is why it's one of our 5 pillars. And it is a non-negotiable for us. We will not just give someone nutrition. Here's your diet. Here's your supplements. Good to go. We are, if you want that practice, we are not that practice because we know it does not work. We know that your body and brain need to feel safe in order to be able to heal. And part of that is the mental and emotional health side. And we have to look at the nervous.
And really, I think that's one of the hardest things because you not only are you retraining the brain, you're also retraining your body. And if you've lived in stress, your brain automatically finds that as the most comfortable state. So you will unconsciously or subconsciously find ways to stress yourself. Like it's very sneaky. You have to be aware. This is where I think journaling is really helpful. And because it'll be like you'll make things like doing the laundry or simple things in your life. Like you'll have to hustle. That's my thing, like urgency. Like I don't have any reason to have but your body does that because it's so used to being in that state. It will feel uncomfortable to start calming you. So you have to be in this uncomfortable place of slowing down and doing the somatics, paired with like brain training, slowing your body down. Maybe you can't go to another one is like people doing heavy workouts, like hard, intense workouts. You're just bringing more stress in, and you don't want to stop doing it because that's your outlet. Well, really what it is your body trying to stay in that most known state, and you're holding yourself back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Huge. Absolutely huge. I'll also say this is a very challenging piece because arguably once you get into this work, it's never done.
No.
And that's very challenging for people like, I want a finish line. I'm like, when it comes to this side of things, I'm not there by any stretch of the imagination. And I started therapy when I was 11, and I have done so much work over most of my life around this. And some things have been better than others. And I mean, I don't know anyone in the health and healing space that has ever done that is also not ego driven and be like, yeah, I'm done. By the way, it's always dudes that say that. So just not throwing all dudes under the bus. And it's like 3 dudes that I've heard say this, like, yeah, I'm done. I'm like, cool.
Okay.
Yeah. Talk to me in 5 more years. Let me see how that doneness is doing.
Also, one more thing kind of related, going back to the beginning, we were talking about eating. You have to eat regular meals spaced throughout the day to signal safety to your body. So if you're doing the mindset work or like you're doing one of the things, but you're not eating, like it really is a process of building all these things. Like so many women don't eat, but I do mindfulness. Girl, trust me, I know because I do it to myself. Like speaking from experience, like you also you need to feed yourself too. That's safety.
Yeah. Go eat breakfast every day. It's super important. Eat protein. Get your protein and your breakfast. If you're not hungry in the morning, that is a clear sign that your body is very stressed. The hunger cues will come back. It can take a few months, but they will come back. Okay. Last one, just super quick. And if you want to have a deeper dive into this, go listen to the perimenopausal episode, part 3, is where I do a deeper dive into this. but hormones. And this is not exclusively for perimenopause, by the way. This is for a lot of people. And I see this, I mean, PMDD, I went through a bout of last year, like midway last year, as Jonathan was going through his cancer treatment, I went back into perimenopause. And then I came out of perimenopause and I went straight into really significant PMDD. And then went back into perimenopause. And then I'm mostly out of it now. I still need a little progesterone support, but indirect progesterone support. But this, ladies, at any age, this can happen to you. Premenopausal, perimenopause, menopausal, postmenopausal. Our hormones have a really, really big impact on our brain health overall. 2/3 of Alzheimer's cases are women. There is likely a very strong hormone component to that is not well researched, just because we're never included in the research anyways. It's getting better now, and we're not even close to where it should be. And all of these hormones, all 3 of these hormones, play such a big role in our mental and emotional health that one of the best things you can do is track your cycle and track your mental and emotional health throughout your cycle. And this can give us really good insight into what might be going on and why certain things may be happening at certain times. Sudden drops in hormones, especially progesterone, have a crazy impact on the brain, on your mental and emotional health. I mean, PMDD, I'm talking crazy PMDD. And fortunately, once again, I have enough tools in my toolbox that I was able to recognize this, and I was able to make some adjustments and not fall into the rabbit holes. But I mean, crazy dark thoughts that I haven't had in a very, very, very long time. Crazy low mood. I call it the rage monster. There'd be a couple days I was like, Jonathan, please don't talk to me. The rage monster is here.
Yeah.
Total body, brain consuming rage for no reason. Same thing with crying. Just on the floor sobbing for no reason. So hormones can play a really big role in this too. Yeah. So, and just a real quick overview. Estrogen specifically impacts serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. Sleep, anxiety, sensitivity. So if you don't have a lot of anxiety all the time and you notice just certain times you feel like you have no threshold, that any little thing will set you off, it's probably progesterone related. So it's a really big thing. And progesterone also has a very immediate impact on the brain. Estrogen takes a little bit longer. Progesterone has a very quick and can have a very major impact on the brain. And many, 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 many women have very low progesterone. And it's a problem. If you have a lot of stress, I can almost guarantee you have low progesterone because they work in opposites. And then testosterone helps with dopamine, modulating dopamine, confidence, motivation, drive, that kind of thing. And testosterone starts to drop at 30 for all of us, some faster than others. And we can also, things like proper nutrition, exercise, strength training can help with the hormone side of things too, along with everything else. Anything else you want to add?
Gosh, I don't think so. I think this was a good foundational overview, even with a little bit of the deep dive and with the gut and the toxin in the nervous system. I really think that this was thorough.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, everyone. If you want us to go deeper onto one or multiple of these, please reach out to us, social media, email, whatever's easiest for you, let us know, and we will happily do another episode where we do a super deep dive. We can do a super technical episode if you want on any or all of these topics. So please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. Otherwise, thank you for listening. As always, please like, subscribe, follow. If it resonates, 5-star reviews really, really, really mean the world to us. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time.